poor waitress pays for a guy's lunch every day, unaware he's a millionaire and falls in love with her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. It was one of those cold March afternoons when the sky looked bruised and tired. Inside a small diner tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop, the scent of coffee and fried onions hung in the air. The lunch rush had ended, and only the hum of an old refrigerator filled the quiet. Behind the counter stood Lily Carter, a waitress in her late 20s. Her ponytail was slipping loose, her apron was stained with ketchup, and her sneakers were almost coming apart at the seams. She rubbed her hands together for warmth as the doorbell jingled. A man stepped in from the drizzle outside. His coat was worn thin, his hair damp, and his eyes carried that kind of exhaustion that comes from long nights and longer worries. He took the corner booth near the window, shoulders hunched as if trying to disappear. Lily picked up a menu and approached with her usual bright smile. "Good afternoon. What can I get for you today?" He studied the menu for a long moment before murmuring, "Just a bowl of soup. That is all I can afford today." His voice was low, almost embarrassed. When Lily turned toward the register, she saw him counting coins, quarters, nickels, pennies lined up like soldiers on the table. Something in her chest tightened. The total came up short by a few cents. She could have said nothing. Most people would not have noticed. But Lily had grown up watching her mother slip extra bread rolls to struggling customers, whispering, "Kindness costs nothing, but it fills the soul." That memory rose now like a warm light in the cold. When the cook called out the order, Lily added a side of bread and quietly marked the bill as paid, staff meal. She carried the tray to his table with a small smile. "The soup comes with bread today," she said lightly. He looked up, surprised. "I do not remember that being on the menu." "How special," she said, pretending to adjust his napkin. "You got lucky." For a moment, their eyes met his unsure, hers calm and steady. Then he gave a shy nod. "Thank you. I will pay you back someday." Lily laughed softly. If everyone who said that did, this diner would be rich. He smiled faintly, but there was gratitude in the way he looked at her, as if she had given him more than lunch. She turned away, pretending to wipe the counter, yet her mind lingered on him. Something about the way he held his spoon carefully, or the way he stared out at the rain, made him seem out of place, like a man who once belonged somewhere else. When he finished, he placed a few coins on the table and left quietly. The bell above the door chimed, and the wind rushed in after him. On the receipt, he had written 2 words in careful handwriting. "Thank you. I was live." Lily stood there for a long moment, holding the note. Outside, the drizzle thickened into rain, painting silver streaks across the glass. She smiled to herself, slipped the note into her apron pocket, and whispered, "You are welcome, stranger." She did not know that tomorrow he would return to that same seat, order the same soup, and that her small act of kindness would become the thread that tied their fates together forever. The next morning the diner smelled of fresh coffee and frying bacon. But the warmth could not hide how tired Lily Carter felt. She had worked the late shift the night before and barely slept. Her alarm clock had gone off before sunrise, and the chill in her apartment had forced her to wrap herself in 2 old sweaters. Still, she was here, apron tied tight, ready for another long day. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving puddles that mirrored the gray sky. Lily glanced at the corner booth by the window. Empty. For some reason, she had expected the stranger to return, the quiet man with kind eyes and worn shoes. She had even polished the table and placed a small vase with a single daisy there, though she could not explain why. By noon, the lunch crowd trickled in: construction workers, a delivery driver, a couple of college kids sharing fries. Life went on, ordinary and relentless. Then the doorbell chimed. The man was back. Same coat, same tired posture. He sat in the same booth, and when Lily met his gaze, he smiled just enough for her to feel it all the way to her chest. "Back for the house special?" she teased gently as she walked over. "If it is not too much trouble," he said. "That soup yesterday, it helped." "No trouble at all," She scribbled on her pad even though she knew his order by heart. While he waited, Lily caught sight of herself in the reflective metal of the coffee machine, dark circles under her eyes, a strand of hair escaping from her ponytail, a face older than her 27 years. She had been saving every tip for her mother's medication, hoping the next paycheck would stretch far enough to cover rent. Life was numbers on bills, and the sound of hospital machines in her memory. Yet somehow, serving him made the day softer. When she brought his meal, she noticed the tremor in his hands as he lifted the spoon. "Cold morning?" she asked. He hesitated before answering. "Colder than most. But I suppose it will pass." She smiled. Everything does. They shared a quiet that felt safe, almost like two strangers standing at the edge of the same storm. After he left, she found something tucked beneath the empty bowl, a folded napkin. Inside, in careful writing, were the words, "Thank you again. Your kindness is noticed." Under it, he had drawn a small sundae. Lily laughed under her breath. It was the first time in weeks she had laughed without forcing it. Days turned into weeks, and the rhythm continued. Every afternoon, he appeared at the same hour, always polite, always ordering the same soup. She learned to expect him, and though she never asked his story, she began to guess. Maybe he was between jobs, maybe his family had turned away, maybe he just needed somewhere warm to sit. Whatever the truth, she could not stop herself from caring. The cook, a gruff man named Tony, noticed her pattern. "You know he cannot pay full price, right?" he muttered one evening. Lily shrugged. "He tries. That is enough for me." Tony rolled his eyes but said nothing more. He had seen her sneak $1 from her tip jar more than once to cover the difference. That night, after closing, Lily wiped the tables while the rain started again. The neon sign outside flickered, painting the empty diner in red and blue flashes. She thought of the stranger's quiet voice and the way he always said, "Thank you," as if it mattered. Maybe it did. Maybe kindness was not about who deserved it, but about who needed it most. She locked up, pulled on her coat, and stepped into the drizzle. Across the street, the man stood under the awning of the bus stop, waiting, hands tucked in his pockets. He gave her a small wave before boarding the bus. She waved back, unsure why her throat suddenly felt tight. Back in her apartment, Lily sat on the edge of her narrow bed, opening her mother's old notebook. On the first page were the words written in neat cursive, "Be kind even when no one sees." Lily traced the sentence with her finger, smiling faintly. Tomorrow, she decided, she would bring an extra roll of bread with his soup. Just in case. She did not know that he kept every napkin and receipt she gave him, folded neatly inside his wallet like small proofs of hope. She did not know that her kindness was already changing something in him, something that had been asleep for far too long. The following week slipped by quietly. The small diner buzzed with the same daily routine, the hiss of the coffee machine, the clatter of plates, and the faint sound of old country music playing from a wall radio. Lily Carter had learned to find comfort in repetition. Every day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the man returned, sat in the corner booth, and ordered the same bowl of soup. His name, she learned at last, was Daniel. He mentioned it casually when she brought his check, as if it were unimportant. But to her, it felt like something more, a small window into who he was. From then on, she greeted him with, "Good afternoon, Daniel," and he would smile, that quiet smile that always softened the air around them. He began leaving little notes on the napkins, never long, just words like, "Keep smiling," or "You make this place warmer." She kept them all in her apron pocket, as if they were tiny secrets meant only for her. One rainy evening, when the diner was empty, Daniel stayed longer than usual. He watched her wipe the counter, the soft hum of the neon sign painting her hair pink and blue. "You always look tired," he said gently. She laughed. "That is because I am. Between rent, my mother's medical bills, and the cost of keeping the lights on, sleep is a luxury." "You live alone?" "With a goldfish named Charlie. He is not much of a conversationalist." Daniel chuckled, the sound low and warm. "Then you must be stronger than you think." Lily shrugged. "Strength is just what happens when you have no choice left." He fell silent, studying her as if trying to memorize her face. Then, softly, he said, "Thank you, Lily. Not just for the soup." She tilted her head, curious. "Then for what?" "For being kind to a man who might not deserve it." Before she could answer, the doorbell chimed, and the moment broke. She turned to take care of a takeout order, and when she looked back, Daniel was gone. But on the table lay a folded $5 bill and a note written in steady handwriting. For Charlie's next meal. That night, lying in bed, Lily stared at the ceiling. For the first time in a long while, she wondered about the man who came every day. Who was he really? His hands were calloused, but his words were too careful, his manners too refined. And once, when she reached to refill his coffee, she caught sight of a scar on his wrist, thin, silver, like the trace of a different life. Days turned into a quiet pattern. He would arrive, she would serve, and they would exchange small talk that somehow meant more than it should. Yet something about him remained out of reach, wrapped in silence. One Saturday afternoon, while she was restocking napkins, she overheard two regulars at the counter. "You know that guy who eats here every day?" one said. "Saw him downtown last week. Looked different. Clean suit. Fancy watch. Could not be the same person, right?" Lily froze. A fancy watch? Her mind flickered to the faint gleam she had seen once when Daniel rolled up his sleeve to adjust his cuff. She brushed it off then, thinking maybe it was a trick of light. Now, she was not so sure. When Daniel walked in later that day, she tried to act normal. The usual? He nodded, but his eyes met hers for a fraction too long, as if he could sense the shift. While he ate, she stepped behind the counter, her heart heavy with questions she did not dare to ask. Why would a man who seemed so educated, so composed, spend his days eating in a rundown diner? Why did he never use a phone, never mention work or family? At closing time, she found his table empty again, but this time, there was no napkin, no note, only the faint outline of where a cup had rested, and beside it, a single coin, a shiny silver dollar. Lily picked it up, turning it over in her hand. It felt heavier than it should. She slipped it into her apron pocket beside the folded notes he had left before. Something about it felt final, like a promise or a goodbye. Outside, the rain had started once more. The reflection of the neon sign blurred on the wet sidewalk as she locked the door. Somewhere in the city, Daniel disappeared into the night, leaving her with questions that would not let her sleep. She pressed her palm against the pocket where the silver dollar rested and whispered, "Who are you, really?" But the wind outside offered no answer, only the soft rhythm of raindrops against glass, as if the city itself was keeping his secret. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds of the diner, painting thin gold lines across the counter. Lily Carter arrived early, hoping the quiet would settle the unease that had followed her since last night. She brewed the first pot of coffee, wiped every table twice, and checked the corner booth more than once, as if that would somehow make him appear. At exactly 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the bell above the door chimed. Daniel stepped in, just as he always did. His coat was damp from the drizzle, but his smile was soft. "Good afternoon," he said, as though nothing had changed. "Good afternoon," Lily replied, though her heart thudded faster than usual. "The usual?" He nodded. "Please, and maybe a coffee this time." She turned toward the counter, grateful for an excuse to look away. While the soup simmered, she caught herself glancing at him in the reflection of the metal coffee pot. There was something about his calmness that felt rehearsed, like a man used to wearing masks. When she brought over his cup, he looked up. "You seem quiet today." "Just tired," she said quickly. "Long night. Do you ever take a day off?" She smiled faintly. "Not really. If I do not work, the bills do not pay themselves." Daniel hesitated, his spoon resting in midair. "You deserve better than this place." Lily blinked, unsure what to say. "It is honest work." "That is not what I meant." His voice softened. "You have a good heart, Lily. You should be somewhere, people see that." For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. No one had spoken to her like that in a long time. But before she could reply, Tony the cook shouted from the kitchen, breaking the spell. After lunch, the diner emptied out again. Daniel stayed behind, helping her stack chairs even though she told him he did not need to. "I like feeling useful," he said with a small smile. As they worked, the rain outside turned heavier, drumming softly against the glass. Lily found herself asking the question that had been haunting her. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why do you always come here? There are dozens of nicer places in the city." He paused, his expression unreadable. "Because this place reminds me of something I lost. Simpler times, maybe. People who cared for others without expecting anything back. She frowned. You say that like you used to have everything. His eyes flickered, almost sad. Maybe I did. And maybe I needed to remember what really matters. The way he said it made the hairs on her arms stand up. There was a truth hiding in his tone, something deeper than he wanted her to know. Before she could press further, the sound of tires screeched outside. A black car had stopped in front of the diner, its headlights cutting through the rain. Two men in dark suits stepped out, scanning the street as if looking for someone. Daniel stiffened, his jaw tightened, and for the first time, Lily saw something flash across his face, fear. He reached for his coat. I should go. Daniel, who are those people? They should not be here, he muttered, almost to himself. I will explain soon, I promise. And then he was gone, the door swinging shut behind him. Lily ran to the window, her breath fogging the glass. The men in suits turned as Daniel passed, one of them speaking into a small device she could not see clearly. The car pulled away seconds later, disappearing into the storm. The diner felt emptier than ever. She looked down at the table where he had been sitting. The silver dollar he once left her glimmered faintly under the light, and next to it lay another napkin. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. There were only 5 words written in his careful handwriting. Do not worry. Be patient. She sat down in his booth, staring at the words, until the letters blurred. That night, as she walked home through the misty streets, she could not shake the feeling that her life had quietly stepped over a line she could never return from. Daniel was not who he seemed, and whatever truth he was hiding was about to pull her into something far bigger than either of them. She held the napkin close to her chest and whispered, Please, just be safe. But deep down, she knew the story between them was only beginning, and the next time she saw him, nothing would ever be the same again. 3 days passed, and Daniel did not come back. The corner booth by the window stayed empty, the small vase of daisies slowly wilting in the weak spring light. Lily Carter tried to tell herself that people came and went in New York City all the time. Maybe he had found another diner, or maybe he had finally caught a break. But the truth was, she missed him more than she wanted to admit. Every time the bell over the door rang, her heart leaped before settling again, when it was only another customer. By the end of the 3rd day, she had given up pretending not to care. She found herself cleaning the same table twice, staring at the rain outside as if the city itself was keeping secrets from her. On the 4th day, just before closing, the bell chimed softly. When she looked up, Daniel stood there, water dripping from his coat. He looked different, clean-shaven, his posture straighter, and his clothes far too fine for the man she had known. The sight of him made her freeze. Daniel, she breathed. Lily, he said gently, may I sit? Her voice came out small. Of course. He sat in his old seat, glancing around the familiar diner. It feels strange being here again. I have missed this place. She folded her arms, trying to steady her voice. You look different. He smiled faintly. There is something I need to tell you. The way he said it made her chest tighten. All right, she said cautiously. Tell me. He took a slow breath. My real name is Daniel Holt. I am not unemployed. I am the chief executive officer of a restaurant group called Holt and Hart. We own several places across the city, including this one. The words landed like stones. Lily stared at him, unable to speak. He continued, his tone quiet but firm. I went undercover 6 months ago to see how our employees lived, to understand what happens beyond the boardroom reports. I was supposed to visit a few locations and remain unnoticed. But I stayed here because of you. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The realization hit hard. Every bowl of soup, every smile, every conversation had all been shared with a man pretending to be someone else. So, she whispered, you have been lying to me since the day we met. Daniel's expression was full of regret. I never meant to hurt you. What began as research became something I did not expect. You reminded me why I started this company in the first place. Lily shook her head, feeling a sting in her chest. You sat here every day and watched me struggle, and you said nothing. You let me pay for your meals when you could buy this entire diner 100 times over. I wanted to see what kindness looks like when there is nothing to gain, he said softly, and you showed me that. She stood still for a moment, torn between anger and disbelief. That is not fair, Daniel. You played a part. You let me believe you were someone I could understand. I wanted you to see me for who I am inside, not what I own. And what if I had known the truth? Would it have changed anything? He hesitated. Maybe, but I needed to know that someone could care for me without the name, without the title. Lily turned away, her voice trembling. You should have trusted me with the truth. He reached into his coat pocket and placed something on the table, the silver dollar she once kept in her apron. You dropped this the night I left, he said. I wanted to give it back. It reminds me of you. Her eyes filled, but she refused to let the tears fall. You do not get to say things like that after lying to me. Daniel's jaw tightened. Lily, please. Stop, she said, her voice breaking. Just stop. The diner fell silent except for the hum of the lights overhead. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Daniel stood slowly, his expression heavy with guilt. I will not bother you again, he said quietly, but thank you for every small kindness you gave me. He turned and walked out into the rain, leaving the door swinging behind him. Lily stood frozen, staring at the coin shining faintly under the light. The weight of it felt unbearable. She reached out, picked it up, and whispered to the empty booth. You could have just told me the truth. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, echoing through the streets. Inside the diner, the clock ticked toward midnight. For the first time since she had met Daniel, the little restaurant felt truly silent, like the warmth had gone out with him. She sat down, her hands shaking, and for the first time in years, Lily Carter allowed herself to cry. The rain did not stop that night or the night after. It fell endlessly, washing over the city like a reminder that everything Lily Carter thought she knew had changed. The diner felt colder now. The customers were the same, the menu was the same, but the space where Daniel used to sit seemed empty in a way that went beyond sight. She still worked her shifts, moving through her routines like a ghost. Tony, the cook, noticed her silence. You all right, kid? He asked one morning as he cracked eggs onto the grill. I am fine, she said, forcing a smile that fooled neither of them. Fine never means fine, he muttered, but he did not push further. At night, she sat by her window, listening to the city hum. The silver dollar lay on her table, the faint reflection of streetlight flickering across its surface. Every time she looked at it, she saw his face, his apology, his regret, his quiet sadness. She told herself she should hate him, but she could not. 2 weeks passed before she saw him again. It happened late on a Thursday afternoon, just before closing. The sky outside was bruised with the color of an oncoming storm. Lily was counting tips when the doorbell jingled. She looked up, and her breath caught. Daniel stood there, drenched from the rain, holding something wrapped in brown paper. Lily, he said softly. Her first instinct was to tell him to leave, but the sight of his soaked coat stopped her. What are you doing here? I came to return something, he said, setting the package on the counter. What is it? He opened it carefully. Inside was a small framed picture, a photograph of her mother. It had been hanging near the kitchen, faded and cracked. I had it restored, he said. I know what she meant to you. I found it when we were renovating this location. Lily's throat tightened. You should not have. I wanted to, because she taught you the kindness that changed my life. She blinked back tears. Daniel, why are you really here? He took a deep breath. Because I cannot walk away knowing I hurt you. You were right. I should have trusted you. I thought pretending to be ordinary would teach me about others, but it only showed me how lost I have become. She folded her arms, her voice unsteady. And what do you want from me now? Forgiveness? He hesitated. No, just a chance to make things right. How? She asked bitterly. With another secret? Another lie? No lies, he said. Only truth. He pulled a folder from his coat and placed it beside the picture. Inside were sketches and blueprints, a project proposal. I started a foundation, he explained. It is called Meals of Hope. It funds small diners and soup kitchens like this one. The first location will be named after your mother, the Carter table. Lily stared at the papers, her heart caught between disbelief and anger. Why are you showing me this? Because it was your kindness that inspired it, he said. You showed me what real service means. It is not about profits or reputation. It is about feeding people because it is the right thing to do. She shook her head, unable to speak. Daniel continued, his voice lower now. I do not expect you to forget what I did, but I need you to know that everything I am doing now is because of you." For a moment, the only sound was the rain against the glass. Then Lily asked quietly, "So what happens next? You leave again, and I stay here pretending none of this happened?" He met her eyes, rain still dripping from his hair. "If that is what you want, I will respect it. But if you let me, I would like you to be part of this. I want you to run the first project. You deserve that more than anyone." She stepped back, overwhelmed. "You want me to work for you?" "No," he said softly. "I want to work with you." The way he said it made her chest ache. She looked at the framed picture again, her mother's smile frozen in time. For years, she had carried that memory like a lantern in the dark. Maybe, just maybe, this was her mother's way of reminding her that kindness did not end with betrayal. "I will think about it," she said finally. "That is all I ask." He nodded once, turned, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he paused and said, "The offer is not about business, Lily. It is about redemption. For both of us." When he was gone, she touched the frame gently, tracing her mother's face. For the first time since he had revealed the truth, her heart felt something other than anger. Outside, the rain began to fade, and through the clouds, a thin beam of sunlight broke across the city. It struck the silver dollar on her table, and for a fleeting second, it shimmered like a promise not yet kept, but still alive. The following week moved slowly, each day carrying the weight of choices not yet made. Lily Carter went to work, served coffee, wiped tables, and tried to convince herself that she could live as if nothing had changed. But every time she looked at the restored photograph of her mother hanging near the register, she thought of Daniel Holt's offer, the foundation, the apology, the hope she wanted to believe was real. Tony noticed her distraction. "You are thinking about that man again," he said one morning as he poured himself a cup of coffee. Lily sighed. "He asked me to help him start something new, a charity for small diners and soup kitchens. And you do not trust him." "I want to. But how do you forgive someone who lied to your face every day?" Tony leaned against the counter. "Maybe you do not forgive him for the lie. Maybe you forgive him for being human." The words stayed with her all day. That evening, after closing, she found herself walking toward the address Daniel had written on the back of his proposal. The building was sleek and modern, all glass and steel, a world away from her tiny diner. Inside, she saw him through the window talking to a group of staff, sleeves rolled up, laughter soft but genuine. It was strange seeing him in his true world. When he noticed her standing outside, he excused himself and stepped out to meet her. "You came," he said quietly. Surprised, but grateful. "I just wanted to see if it was real," she said. "The foundation." "It is real," he replied, "and it will open next month, with or without me. But I hoped you would be part of it." She hesitated, searching his face. There was no pretense now, no disguise. Just a man who had made mistakes and was trying to make them right. "I still do not know if I can trust you," she said honestly. "Then do not trust my words," he answered. "Trust what I build." Lily looked past him, through the glass, at the workers assembling boxes labeled with food donations. For the first time, she believed him. "I cannot promise anything," she said softly. "Promise to try," he said. She nodded once, feeling the quiet shift inside her. When she walked away, Daniel stayed on the sidewalk, watching her until she disappeared into the city lights. For the first time in months, she did not feel weighed down by anger. Instead, she felt something else, something fragile and new. It was not forgiveness yet, but it was the beginning of it. 2 weeks later, Lily Carter stood in front of a new storefront with a painted sign that read, "Meals of Hope, the Carter Table." The grand opening was only a few hours away, and the early morning air carried the smell of freshly baked bread from the kitchen inside. Volunteers moved in and out, arranging tables, stacking boxes of canned food, and laughing as they worked. It was the kind of noise that felt alive, and for the first time in a long while, so did she. Daniel Holt arrived quietly, wearing jeans and a plain white shirt instead of his usual tailored suit. "You did it," he said, his voice low but proud. Lily smiled faintly. "We did it. You just provided the resources. The people here did the rest." "I provided more than money," he said. "I provided the chance, but you turned it into purpose." She studied him for a moment. "Why me, Daniel? You could have chosen anyone else." Because you remind me of who I was before the money, before the titles, he said. You care about people. That is the one thing that cannot be bought. As the sun rose higher, people began to gather outside families, workers, elderly neighbors. When the doors opened, applause filled the air. The first guest, a young mother holding her child, stepped forward and whispered a thank you to Lily. That single word, spoken softly, melted something inside her. Daniel stood beside her, helping hand out meals. Every now and then, their hands brushed, and neither pulled away. The rhythm of teamwork felt easy, natural. At the end of the day, when the crowd had gone and the volunteers had left, Lily walked through the quiet space. The walls were lined with photos of small diners like hers, places now receiving support from the foundation. On the far wall hung a framed photograph of her mother, smiling, with the words, "Kindness is never wasted." Beneath it, Daniel joined her, wiping his hands with a towel. "She would be proud of you." Lily turned to him. "I think she would be proud of both of us." He smiled, and for a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was no longer heavy, it was peaceful. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, and a gentle wind carried the smell of soup and rain through the doorway. Daniel looked at her, his eyes warm. "You know," he said quietly, "I think this is what hope looks like." Lily nodded. "Maybe it is." And as the lights dimmed, she realized she no longer felt the ache of betrayal. She felt healing. 1 year later, the diner was filled with laughter and the smell of cinnamon and coffee. The Meals of Hope program had grown beyond anything Lily Carter could have imagined. Across the city, small restaurants and community kitchens carried the same motto painted above their doors: "Kindness is never wasted." That morning, the foundation celebrated its anniversary with a small gathering at the first location, the Carter Table. Photographs lined the walls showing volunteers, children, and families who had found comfort there. Lily walked among them, greeting familiar faces. When she reached the corner table by the window, she paused. It was the same booth where Daniel Holt had once sat pretending to be an ordinary man. He approached her quietly, holding a small wrapped box. "For you," he said with a gentle smile. "You did not have to," she replied, but her eyes softened. "I wanted to," he said. "You once paid for my lunch when I had nothing. Today, I want to return something far greater." Lily opened the box. Inside, beneath soft tissue paper, was a framed receipt, the same one from years ago, marked "Paid by Lily." The ink had faded, but the words still carried warmth. Daniel said softly, "That meal changed my life. It reminded me what compassion looks like. And it reminded me what love feels like." Her throat tightened. "You kept it all this time?" "Every single day," he said, "because that was the first time I understood the meaning of real wealth." He reached for her hand, eyes steady. "Lily Carter, will you let me spend the rest of my life learning from your kindness?" Tears glimmered in her eyes, but her smile was bright. "Yes," she whispered. Applause rose around them as their friends and volunteers watched, cheering softly. The room glowed with light and the scent of warm bread. Later, as the evening settled, the framed receipt hung proudly on the wall beside her mother's photograph. Beneath it, a small plaque read, "The first meal was free. The rest of our lives we will pay forward." And for the first time, Lily knew she was no longer just surviving. She was home,